Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Living with Us. I'm your host, Sharon Mundia. It's a gorgeous morning, and I'm hoping you're having a gorgeous morning too. Today's show is a slightly heavy one, but it's an important one. We like to discuss matters mental health here every so often and try and just demystify, because for the most part, it's quite stigmatized still in the world. But when we know better, we do better. And so for today's conversation, we're diving into the world of bipolar, and we're trying to understand it a little bit better. We've got someone who was here a couple months back and spoke to us about depression. It was depression, right? His name is Arthur Morioki, a psychologist, and we're going to try and unpack bipolar disorder. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's start with trying to understand what bipolar disorder is. Can you explain and define it for us?
So what we call bipolar disorders or group of disorders, bipolar is a psychiatric condition, meaning it's a mental disorder that needs a medical diagnosis, a psychiatric diagnosis. That is
psychiatric.
Yes, it's a psychiatric condition. Okay. And later we will mention why, if it's a psychiatric condition, then what are the first line of treatments. Okay. So bipolar has two distinct characteristics or group of symptoms. The first one is mania, and the second one is depressive symptoms.
Okay.
So when we talk about mania, we're talking about a group of symptoms that when you meet this person, what are you going to observe to group it as manic symptoms? And some of these symptoms are that for someone who has bipolar, some of the things that you're going to observe is that this person is very talkative, like extremely talkative. They are spending most of the time that they have with you speaking very fast, something called pressured speech, like the urge to continue speaking a lot. So that's one.
All the time, or?
Most of the time. So that when they sit with you, they have a lot of ideas coming, like they're pressured, they're under a lot of pressure to express these ideas. Okay. So that is one red flag. So it doesn't mean with our symptoms that everyone who talks a lot has bipolar.
Right.
So you have to meet the rest of the symptoms, right, or the most of the rest of the symptoms I'm going to mention. So the second one is that this person is highly irritable. So they always appear to be on edge. This is someone who's, for a better word, volatile. So you'll say something or you'll correct them on something if it's a teenager, and they're going to explode. And the reaction that they're going to come up with is extreme. It's not within what you'd expect someone to react like.
Can you give me an example?
So, for example, if I stepped on your toes when I was walking out, mm-hmm, and you would expect naturally for you to experience an emotion of anger, like yeah,
that was painful.
See, that's good. But then for someone who has bipolar, it's an emotional reaction to almost everything. So you'll find that this person, after I have walked out, or even before I walk out, they explode. Like, why did you do that? Didn't you see my toe? It goes on a rampage with words, and there's and even after you apologize, the person now switches it back that it was very intentional. You wanted to hurt me. And it cannot recognize that it was an intentional, if it was an intentional, or maybe an accident. So this pressured speech, there is also the irritability, or highly reactive to almost every situation.
To almost every situation.
Yes. So this is within the manic episode.
Okay.
So this person will also have a lot of energy. So when I talk about mania, think about a lot of energy that is waiting to burst out. So this is someone who speaking a lot requires a lot of energy. This is someone who surprisingly will not feel the need for sleep. Will feel like I have a lot of energy to do a lot of things. And when I mention a lot of things, it goes to another symptom of goal-directed activity. I set so many goals. I want to achieve a lot of things within a very short period of time because I have a lot of energy. And within this manic phase, I am doing very many tasks. I may not complete all of them, but I want to set so many tasks. So when you meet this kind of person, sometimes you may think this is a very organized person who's a high achiever. But you see now, when we look at it as a symptom of bipolar, it's something that if you're finding no need for sleep, of course, over a period of time, your body will wear out, and then you're going to slump. So these manic symptoms, when they are fully expressed, and sometimes within the manic symptoms, we'll get that this patient will experience what we call psychotic symptoms. And when I say psychotic, it means will sometimes be delusional. Like we'll say, I'm going to go to this place in the evening, and then I'm going, let's say if we're in Nairobi, someone will say, I'm going to go to Mombasa in the evening, and then I have to meet this person, and it's not true. And then tomorrow I'm going to go to Tanzania because I have an appointment with this person, and some even get paranoid.
And they believe it.
They believe it. In this manic phase, they believe that these things that they're saying are actually going to happen. Some get even paranoid. They start saying that there are people following me, and they have bad intentions. So when they appear with, they present with psychotic symptoms, we hear very delusional thoughts. And the delusions are about themselves. Like they have an exaggerated sense of self-esteem or grandiosity of sense of self-worth. That, for example, if they're used to eating maybe in a local restaurant there and it's time to go eat, they'll say, no, I can't eat in that place. I only eat at a 5-star hotel. And when you listen to this person, you know that this person cannot even afford to go to a 5-star hotel. So if you have known this person and they start speaking things that are not making a lot of sense, and they're not saying it as a joke, they actually believe these things, then that's a red flag, and they need attention, some medical attention. So when all these symptoms have expressed themselves, you see, it's put a lot of pressure to the body to perform all these tasks. So naturally, you'll expect that this person will slump into the depressive phase. Now, when we get into the depressive phase, they present with a whole list of depression symptoms. And this is someone who now has no energy to do anything. They've expended all the energy. They have no energy to even get out of bed. And if you met this person and they're in a manic phase, and I forgot to mention another symptom, in these very many activities, some spend a lot of money. And because to feed the exaggerated sense of self-esteem, I want to buy very expensive clothes. I want to max out my credit card if I'm on a credit card. Yes, I am the life of the party.
Right, yeah.
So if you meet this person in this period, you think this is a very lively person, this is someone I want to be in, I want him or her to be in my corner. And then after a few days, you meet this person and they don't even recognize you, they don't know you, or they don't even want to hang out with you, they don't want to get out of bed. They have no energy to do anything. They've lost interest in hanging out in places they used to hang out in their manic phases. Some even get highly suicidal. Some will actually even attempt suicide. This is someone who will either stay in bed throughout, or even when it's time to sleep, they can't get any sleep. So remember that in the manic phase, when we talk about no need for sleep, because of the high energy, they don't want to sleep, because they have so many things that they need to do. But in the depressive phase, they cannot sleep, even if they want. So this is someone who will get in bed and no sleep comes. They want to sleep, but there is no sleep coming. So for others who get sleep, who are able to sleep, they don't want to get out of bed. They want to sleep throughout the day. So, and with regards to appetite, you'll find that this person is either eating too much or not eating at all, has no appetite. So this is someone who now has no sense of hope. Or you remember in the manic phase, they had a lot of activities that they had planned to do. They're very excited about them. But in the depressive phase, they have no interest. They feel helpless.
Right.
They feel no sense of, they have no hope for the future.
Right.
So it's that contrast. It is a high, very high, yes, emotional state, and then there's a deep low emotional state.
So when you talk about like the manic phase, for instance, how much time on average would someone with bipolar disorder be spending on each
So
phase?
it varies.
And does it change per day?
Yes, it
hour?
varies from each patient or person to person. Some, the manic phase will last for only a day. For others, it will last a whole week. For others, it can last a month. Now, the
Can
reason,
it last months?
yes. However, the risk with so for those that it lasts, it's rare for it to last for months, because remember, if this person is not sleeping or not eating because they have a lot of energy and they have pressure to do a lot of things, the body wears out. So for most people, it lasts a day or two. For some, it can go for a whole week. And you see, if their symptoms involve them spending money and they exhaust their salary within the first week, then they have nothing to do.
Right.
So the thought of what have I done? I've wasted all the money kicks in now, the depressive state.
Oh, so something actually does trigger.
Yes, it's a switch that happens.
Okay.
So for you to get that diagnosis, remember, for any psychiatric condition, the symptoms have to be significant enough to cause you distress, a lot of distress. And the second part for any psychiatric diagnosis is that it has to impair your ability to function. So, for example, if you're hosting this show, you wake up and you're cancelling, and the next week you don't want to host a show because of these symptoms. So your colleagues then begin to worry. Why is it that you used to be very excited hosting shows, but now it's something? And then when you, or for example, if you're hosting this show, you're very expressive, you're very talkative. I'm not getting a chance to chime in. You're speaking non-stop. So those are the red flags. Now the reason why it's even sometimes rare for it to go for more than a week is because the people around you will notice these symptoms. Notice S is not very, it's not herself.
It doesn't make any sense. So it's not adding up.
Yes, so let's reach out to her, ask her what's up. And if she's not willing to talk, let's involve the family. So sometimes because you're not aware that this is what is happening. So most patients, the reason why it stops before it goes further is because they're hospitalized during the manic phase.
Okay.
Or even for the
during
depressive.
The manic phase?
Yes. For most admissions come in during the manic phase.
Okay.
Because he's someone who has no sense of safety even.
Right.
They'll go on extreme sex sprees. So they'll have sex with multiple sex partners, some even strangers, complete strangers, because when the urge comes to do something, the impulse is not containable. Okay. So this is someone who you'll notice there was a before and after. That you used to be this way, calm, collected, and organized, and then suddenly everything is up there. Okay. And then after it goes from up, it comes to down. So for bipolar, the manic phase alone does not qualify for bipolar disorder. It has to also oscillate and go down to the depressive
And so does
phase.
it match up such that, if say you're in a manic state for about a week, then you probably will be in a depressive state for about a week, and then
you can predict. So there are those who we normally say, so there's bipolar 1, which I have explained, and then there's bipolar 2. So for bipolar 2, there's a depressive state, the depressive symptoms, but then when you go to mania, it's something called hypomania. So meaning they are less severe symptoms of mania, but they are still a significant change from previous functioning. So that, for example, if you're highly talkative, when you compare that symptom with mania and hypomania, it's not as, when you observe these two patients, you can tell a difference. That this one is speaking non-stop, does not pause, is not even fighting to catch a breath. But
that's
for this
bipolar 1?
Yes, for mania.
Okay.
But then for bipolar 2, it's hypomania. So it's the same symptoms of mania, but less severe symptoms.
Oh, okay.
So there's a level of functioning, like for example, you right now. So hypomania would be a slightly elevated symptoms of mania, but then for full mania, it's extreme symptoms. Right. So there are levels. Yeah. And then the third one is what we call cyclothymic disorder. So remember hypomania. So there's the symptoms of hypomania, now is cyclothymic, and then there's the symptoms of depression, and they never resolve. They're in low levels throughout the year. So you'll notice if I met you last year and then I meet you today, I can tell there's something off about you. And this is continually constant throughout the year. So they never fully express themselves to full mania, and they never fully meet the criteria for full or major depression. Right. But we can tell S is a bit different.
That is something different. So what causes it? What starts it? Yeah.
So we cannot put a finger to this is the thing, or this is the bug that bites you and then you get bipolar, or this is the worm that comes. So, but there are risk factors, and one of them is if your history growing up. What's your history? Did you go through any traumatic experiences? Was there a history of substance use? Was there loss of a loved one? Were there significant experiences that occurred to you when you're young that caused you to cope a certain way, so that if it was anxiety provoking, then you needed to do so many things to dispel this anxiety. Or if it was, and then after that, the experiences were very sad for you. So those prime you or prepare you to later on in your early 20s to get these diagnoses. Another very significant risk factor is family history. So that if your first degree relative, your family, your mom, dad, your sisters, and then your first cousins, your aunties, your uncles, your grandparents, if there is a history of psychiatric disorders, not necessarily bipolar, but if bipolar is there in your family, that's a very high risk factors. So for even the viewers listening, if you have you come from a family that has a history of psychiatric illnesses, it helps you to be more aware of how you react, of how you feel when something happens to you. Do you feel it with extreme intensity? And do people notice, or do people mention statements about you that if you mess with her, or if you mess with him, then you're going to really get it?
But that requires an incredibly a great sense of self-awareness, I imagine.
Yes.
We've got to take a break, but we'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody. Today's show, we are trying to demystify and understand bipolar disorder. And before the break, Arthur Muriuki, a psychologist, was painting a very good picture of what it's like for someone who's living with bipolar disorder. And actually, during the break, we were just talking about Kanye West, who has come out as having been diagnosed as bipolar. And I was just saying, I was commending him for being so brave, so that there is a face to that, but also so that people can know that, well, one, be a little bit more understanding, but also two, know that you can still be a great artist, whether you like Kanye or not, and stand for what some of the things he said or not. I think he's such an incredible artist, and that's commendable. So, Arthur, how young can someone be for them to be diagnosed as bipolar? Can children suffer from this?
It's rare to get a diagnosis, to give that diagnosis to a child, because we need to rule out very many other things.
Okay.
Most of the time, so because bipolar is grouped as a mood disorder.
Okay.
For very young children, we don't rush to give a diagnosis before you look at what's happening to the environment. So for example, if the environment is highly reactive, there's a lot of shouting and fighting and screaming at each other, that then the child needs to cope in that environment. So the child is trying to adapt to that environment and takes on the emotions of that environment and starts expressing them. So when we normalize the family environment and we calm it down as much as possible, we get to see that this child is able to also calm down. So we don't rush to give this diagnosis to children, because we also need to factor in other things. What's the nutrition levels of this child? What is how are their attachment relationships with the significant others? So normally this diagnosis is given in early adulthood, between the ages of 18, late teenage, and early adults. So from the ages of 18. Having said that, it's not abnormal, or it's not. It doesn't mean that these symptoms cannot occur. So when you tend to see that this child is presenting these kinds of symptoms, is highly reactive of bullying other children, and then you see that there's a sudden burst of energy, and they have to do so many things. So we also have to rule out OCD. This is obsessive compulsive disorder. Right. So and I mean not OCD, ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactivity.
So I guess in children, essentially, it's just a little bit harder.
Yes.
So in an adult, then, what are some of the treatment options available?
So the first line of treatment for bipolar is psychiatric medication. So that means mood stabilizers. So for example, if you're in a manic phase, you will need to be put on mood stabilizers for your moods to stabilize, so that they are not functioning at an elevated level. And then when you stabilize, then some can give antipsychotics to cover for the psychotic symptoms, especially if they're the most prevalent symptoms. And then when we go to the depressive phase, then we'll also give antidepressants. So there's some medication that has a combination of those. And then there's sometimes, depending on who your doctor is, can prescribe a list of medications. But you see, it doesn't mean that if you know someone who has bipolar and on some specific medications and you get the same diagnosis, that you now go and share those medications. So it needs a medical diagnosis. You need to sit down with your psychiatrist and get that diagnosis and then get your own prescription. So psychiatric medication is not shared, just like any other physical medicine tabs. You do not share medication.
Okay.
So after that diagnosis, then and you're put on medication, then you need to begin your psychotherapy sessions. And what psychotherapy does is to give you that awareness that these are your triggers. When this happens to you, this is how you interpret it. And after you interpret it like this is the mood that comes up. And this is what triggers the depressive phase. When you start thinking that no one understands you, the whole world is against you, the people out there to hurt you. And then after that has happened, then this is how you can expect should happen. So that when you start feeling like you're setting too many tasks, or you haven't slept for a whole night, and even this is the next day and you still do not want to sleep because you have all these things to do, then when you get that awareness, then you're able to know, what can I do there? So the first is giving information.
Okay.
And also, so because it's a psychiatric condition and bipolar is a significant diagnosis to give, it takes some time for the patient, for some patients, to accept it or to acknowledge it. So even...
Actually, I just got curious just then. Is it, once you're diagnosed with bipolar, is that something that, you will have to live with for the rest of your life? Or
sadly, yes. Bipolar does not have a cure. Having said that, the good news is that it's treatable. So to treat, the word treat here means manageable. So when you are put on medication and you're in therapy for some time, then the symptoms are the medication brings you back to what you call normal levels of functioning, so that you go through your day like normal, like you used to before the diagnosis. And therapy now lets you become aware. These are my triggers.
Right.
This is when I see this is how I interpret it.
And you know what to do.
Yes.
And how should family or friends show up for someone once they've been diagnosed with bipolar? What should they be aware of?
And I think that's a very good question, because sometimes the mistake that we do in treatment is to treat the patient alone. So what we recommend is that for someone who has that diagnosis, the treatment is family oriented, so that you get to understand your child or your spouse or your parent, that this is what, or your cousin, that this is a condition, this is a full medical diagnosis, just like you would get cholera and prioritize it, or malaria and prioritize it. So this is also a condition that needs to be prioritized with care when it comes to care. So in family sessions, what we also give this information, that these are the symptoms. When you see this person behaving this way, they're not being rude, they're not being disrespectful, they're not being arrogant, that this is these symptoms expressing themselves. And then when you see these, how do you then cannot, it may not be very helpful for the situation for you to take offense and react through offense.
Right.
So that if someone has done something that you think they're very selfish, and you
has an outburst, and you're like, what did I do?
Yes.
To I guess.
Or you become violent to this person. Your reaction can either make the situation worse or help calm it down. So what we recommend to families also to acquire now these calming. How do you calm this person down, so that when they go on that reactive spree, that you're able to sit them down and have a conversation. It may not be an easy open and shut conversation. It's a process. How do you listen to what's going on? How do you show care? How do you also still show love?
I like what you said. It's almost like it's treatment for everybody, because everyone now, is essentially living with this and having to try and make sense of it. So it has to be something that everybody
Yes.
learns how to cope with. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arthur. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of facts that you may not have heard of before around bipolar disorder. So take a look at that. When we come back, we'll be joined by a lovely young lady. But here's some facts about bipolar disorder. So what you just saw was some quick facts around bipolar disorder. And now I've got Jackie Kagu, who is someone who's living with bipolar disorder. Welcome, Jackie.
Yes, Auntie Sarah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
When were you diagnosed with having bipolar?
I was diagnosed in the year 2017, month of February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what led to that and to you going in and getting the diagnosis?
I think a lot was happening in my life. I had no idea what is bipolar, but it reached a point. I think I went into depression, and that's a moment I almost committed suicide and killed my 2 sons. So we were rescued. Then after being rescued, I was taken to Mediva Wellness Center.
You almost killed your 2 sons?
Yeah.
Oh, and yourself?
Yes. And so after that, then I stayed in Mediva Center for a period of time, over a month. Then I was told I have bipolar disorder.
Before that, had there been anyone in your life who had brought something up to you like, Jackie, I don't know if everything is okay. Something's not right here.
I'll say since childhood, I was this happy girl, energetic, always jovial. But when I was in high school, most of the teachers were telling me that I was on bangi or drugs. You know, I'm so hyped.
But were you on any kind
no,
of drugs? Okay.
But then I was not.
Okay.
And I would always get into trouble.
Because you were very talkative and energetic.
I'm very talkative and energetic.
Okay.
I could say daring.
Okay.
Like the things that people fear doing, I will do. If you tell
Can you
me
give
pass
an
through,
example?
I remember in high school, there used to be fire extinguishers. They're just placed outside the dormitories. And we've not been taught what these things are supposed to do. I remember I was in Form 2, and it was on a Saturday. And we used to wash the dormitories and then wait for inspection. After our dormitory was clean, I don't know what I was thinking about or what happened. I just walked into the dormitory, took the fire extinguisher, walked inside the dormitory. It's clean, by the way, very clean, spotless, and ignited it. Like the whole dormitory was full of white powder, including myself. And I walked out. And I was taken to the matron. You know, I was supposed to be scared and, you know, I'm going to be suspended or expelled. And I remember I told the matron, you guys, you've put these things here, you've never showed us how to use it. So me, I'm trying to find out how it works.
Okay.
And she looked at me and she was so angry and she took me to the deputy's office. And I remember I told her, throw me out of the school. Tell me what you're going to tell the community. You have fire extinguishers, we don't know how to use them. In case there is a fire, will you come from your houses and come and switch off the fire? So I was told to go home. And then I came back. 2 months down the line, Jackie's there. I don't know what happened. Just on a Saturday, the bus was somewhere parked. It usually parked behind the dining hall. I don't know what I was thinking about or what triggered it. I was tiny. So a friend of mine, her name was Rachel, lifted me up and I got into the bus with like a small car window behind the bus. You see the way you watch movies? You carry this wire, you carry that wire. I don't know what why I did, but all I know is that the bus started moving.
You're kidding me.
Towards some banana plantation, and it was going, and I jumped. Fortunately for me, or unfortunately, my mom's sister was the principal of that school. So when they asked who was in that bus, she said, "You're supposed to be a coward," and I'm there. And I drove the bus, and it reached a point. They thought I was on bangy, I'm rude, I'm spoiled, but me, I felt I'm living my life.
And this was in high school?
That was in high school.
So as you moved through life, and I'm sure your circles change, and now you're an adult, you're at work, were you getting this kind of like impulsive reactions to things, or were they somewhat subdued a little the older you got?
The older I got, the more mess I was making. Because now I moved out of high school, I went to college. We used to be in a air travel used to be in Bazaar Plaza, 10th floor. It's so high, and so on the balcony I'd walk on the edge, and I would enjoy people watching me from below. And the director, called Mr. Gaku, I would enjoy how he would call me like, "Jackie, come out of there." And me, I'm like, "No, I'm enjoying this." And they're like, "What's wrong with this small girl?" And I remember he called my parents and told my parents, "I want Jacqueline to go home. She can only come back to this college when she has a letter from a counselor, because we don't know what is happening with her."
All right.
Yeah.
So I see, like but at least college, someone had said it's not just drugs or whatever, like kids just being.
Yeah, because even when we go out with friends,
yeah,
you will not tell the difference between Jacqueline and someone who's drunk.
Okay.
And I don't drink.
Right.
So people will think I have drunk like 2 crates of beer, but I'm not drunk. Yeah.
We've got to take a break, but we'll be right back with more of Jackie's story. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. Today's show has been about trying to understand bipolar, and we've got Jackie here with us, and she, before the break, was giving us examples of some of the things that she did, because she's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and she's living with it currently, which in high school felt like this must have been a dare, but it really was just, I guess, Jackie, not even understanding that you had, you were going through a manic phase at that point.
Yeah.
Take me through the point at which you started going through the depression, because that's what led you ultimately to go see a psychologist, right?
Yeah.
Or a counselor.
Yeah.
What happened during that period? Because you've described a couple of, the more manic episodes.
I'll say after college, I got married. So here's Jackie. She doesn't know she has bipolar.
And your husband had no idea.
Nobody has any idea, even my family, nor my friends. Yeah. So here's Jackie, married, and with the same energy. I cannot be told. I cannot be advised. I'm simply someone you cannot control. So it reached a point in the house. We are 2 men. So he comes at 2 a.m., I'll come at 3 a.m. He wants to go out party, I'll go out and party. So it became a very violent marriage. And within time, we separated, we divorced. So here is Jackie with her 2 sons. And I remember I took a loan of 800,000 Kenya shillings. Within 2 days, that money was gone.
On what?
I don't know. Because I walked into a supermarket, bought things that I already had in the house. So the ones I had in the house, I gave away. Gave away the fridge, I gave away the seats, because I want the new ones in the house. I remember I met an old woman in Karatina. She wanted money. From nowhere, I walked into an ATM, I withdrew 50K and I gave her. I just wanted to spend. So here I am. I'm doing the not so important things in my life. And I stayed for a very long time doing that. Taking my friends out, having fun, paying their bills, and so many things. Then all of a sudden I'm broke. There's no money. And so I started withdrawing from people. I started keeping to myself. I I remember I said I stopped going to work without an apparent reason. And if I'm going to work, I'll go to work late, at noon, at midday, and my bosses ask me anything. I'm so rude, you don't even imagine that's my boss I'm talking to. I remember I work at Kratino University, and I remember my boss asked me what I want in life. I told him the same way you're employed by the government is the same way I'm employed. So if you want to fire me, you and I will go out the same gate. He looked at me and told me to go home. I went home and came back the following day. Asked me whether I'm okay. I told him I've never been better. I'm okay, but they could see something is wrong. After a period of time, I withdrew completely from people. I would cry alone in the house. Let me take you back. In college is when I started engaging myself in bangi. But to me, bangi was not affecting me the way I wanted it to affect me. When I used to inhale it, I would feel normal. I would think straight. So I started taking it as a way of easing my mind. It became a habit. So now, during this time I was going through these things, I was coming from work, locking myself in my room, drawing the curtains and smoking the bangi and feeling okay. And then I would feel I have the energy to do everything. And it reached a point, I went and rented a hotel. I bought some chemical meant for rats and some 3 bottles of water. And I told my sons, I want to treat you guys, because it was a hotel. I want to treat you guys, these 2 days you're going to go to a hotel, you have fun, you go swimming, you do everything. Because I had planned, when we sleep on a Saturday, when they wake up on Sunday, we all drink the concoction and sleep in that hotel. I wanted to be missing for a period of time, so that all you want to find are bodies. But now you see I have not gone to work for a week, so my employer is looking for me. My friends are looking for me. By God's grace, a friend of mine called my phone. I had already left the room. So my son picked the phone. And my friend asked my son, where are you? My son said, I don't know. And so my friend is called Irene. I told my son, can you describe what you can see? And so my son said, I can see a church. I can see the highway. So there's only one hotel near church and highway. And so when I came back, I found him talking on phone. I was so angry that I did beat my son, they beat a thief. And so that, him shouting and the screaming, and now my friend is looking for me, they knew exactly that is the room to look me for. So they stormed in and they took the sons away from me.
How old were your children?
My son then was 10 years and the other one was 7 years. And then I was taken back to work.
Back to work?
Yeah, because the employer decided instead of firing this girl, there must be something wrong with her. So they took me to the university doctor. And the university doctor told me, Jacqueline, I want you to go see a counselor. And I'm like, do you think I'm crazy? Why are you sending me to a counselor? I even told her, can you write a letter? If they want to fire me, they should fire me now. I can always get another job. She told me, I can only fire you when I have a report from a doctor. So that time I was, because my parents live in Thika, so they told me, you wanted to go and live with your parents together with your kids. At least you know the kids are safe and you're safe.
By then, had you told anyone what your intentions had been when you went into that hotel
When they walked
room?
into the room, they saw.
Okay.
It was so clear.
Okay.
So that's why they decided I cannot stay alone together with the kids.
Right.
So when I went home, the registrar, who used to be my boss, called my parents and told them Jackie's on the way coming, and this is what we have agreed. My mom was concerned, my dad was concerned, and so they decided they're going to stay with me and kids. And actually my dad took the responsibility of taking my kids to school. I'm at home, and all I'm thinking about is death. The easiest way to die. At least I can say I love myself so much, because I was thinking the knife is too painful. So my dad and my mom are teachers, and my sons have gone to school. This is week 1 in Thika at home. And then I lit a jiko and locked all the doors and windows. But my parents' house had not yet been completed kujengwa, so there are spaces up there. So I waited to die. I waited. Death did not come. And so I called my friend. I told my friend what I had planned to do. She told me, Jackie, I don't know what you're going to do to you. I want to tell your mom. I told her, don't tell my mom. So she told my doctor at the university. So the doctor decided, she told me that Midiva, there's a center called Midiva Center. They are waiting for you.
Right.
I went to Midiva Center and I met a gentleman by the name Elvis.
Yeah.
When I met him and he had already been briefed about my story, he wanted me to become an inpatient.
Okay.
And I told him, I cannot be an inpatient. You know, when you walk into a hospital, you can see the patients. They were out there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, I don't look like these guys.
Yeah.
Like, you can see me, I'm good. He told me, you'll become an outpatient then. You'll be coming on Thursdays at 3 and leaving at 5.
Okay.
Because I was in denial, I don't want to accept I have a problem. I was going at 4:15 so that we can only stay for 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
And we stayed and stayed and stayed like that.
So how long before you accepted your condition?
It took time because while I was still an outpatient, so that I can be admitted is a moment I almost hacked my mom to death. And because I realized what I was about to do, I walked all the way from Thika. There's a place called Landless, all the way to Makongeni to Thika at night. And I remember I reached Midiva Center at 3 a.m. and it was raining.
Oh my God.
And the watchman, when they opened the gate, they're like, Jackie, you are the outpatient, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And I was so hysterical, so violent. So they injected me, so I slept until midday.
Okay.
I stayed midday. I woke up, I found my parents there with my clothes, and my dad said, I don't want this lady, whatever this person is, I don't want her in my house. I want the daughter that I know
That he knew.
back in my house.
So how are you today? Because obviously you went through the treatment.
Yeah, I went through the treatment. After like 3 weeks is when I accepted I have the condition.
Okay.
It was tough because first I had to be detoxed, as in to remove all the drug substance from my system.
By this time you weren't just on weed.
I was on weed.
Oh, okay, weed. Okay.
Yeah, and seaweed does not have treatment.
Yeah.
So I had to be taken through the process of staying without it. You see the way you watch these things in movie, like body shaking,
Right.
stammering, it happens in reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I struggled. I remember my friends would come, I would not even say your name. My tongue was so heavy because with bipolar, not all medication work for you. You're like an experiment in a hospital. So they put this medication, it's not working on you, they change. But then I later accepted I have this condition. And I went viral and I realized I'm not alone. There are many that are out there, but they're just keeping quiet. Yeah.
So why is it important for you to share your story?
I do share my story to encourage those that are out there. It's a condition like any other condition, but once you accept it and live positively, with a positive mind, there's nothing you cannot do. Actually, I believe everybody has a mental condition. Everyone. It's just that there's something that has not triggered your mental condition. The way you hear, my husband has been so quiet, he loves me so much. Then from nowhere, one day your husband comes and burns the whole house together with you and the kids in. Something triggered that. Everybody goes through a mental breakdown. Just that mine, I was told it's permanent. I will live with it. I have to accept it and live with it. So those that are out there that are like me, whether it is long term or short term, accept it, live with it. Take your medication daily and religiously.
Do you have to take medication daily?
Yeah, I take medication daily, approximately 7:30 p.m. Every month, I have to go for an injection so that at least I can function. Because when I'm hyper, I'm destructive. When I'm in low mood, I'm dangerous. So I don't want to deal with that person. Yeah.
Oh man, Jackie, thank you so much for sharing your story and for letting the world in on something that most people would be nervous or hesitant to be open about. But I think the more we talk about this, the more we try and understand it, then the less stigmatized it is, the easier it is for us to accept it when we see it in ourselves or in other people, and to therefore seek out help. And I'm sure your family is so happy to see how much you've changed in the woman that you are today.
Yeah, my family is supportive, very supportive. I have friends who are very supportive. I started a foundation called Jackie's Foundation, and I reach out to fathers, mothers, children who have to walk the journey. The journey is so hard when you're walking alone, but when you have people showing you love and supporting you, you feel okay. But when everybody deserts you, like they said, that's a crazy woman.
Right. Did you find that you experienced that?
To date, I still do experience that. There are friends who, like, they don't want anything to do with me.
Yeah.
But what I tell people is that they were not friends in the first place. Because if you cannot be my friend in bad times, then you're a fake friend. There are those that are coming back now because they have understood me. Because my hyper was bad. I would be rude. I'll tell you something that will haunt you for a whole year because there are very heavy words. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. What's the name of the foundation?
Jackie's Foundation.
Jackie's Foundation. And how can people be a part of it? And because like you said, I think when you find like-minded people or people in the same space, it sort of makes you feel like you're not alone. So how can people be a part of it?
They can follow me on Facebook.
Okay.
They can also join a group in WhatsApp.
Okay.
I'll share the number.
Yeah.
And rarely I do Instagram because Instagram is when people talk to me directly. So it's so kind of private.
Okay.
But the Facebook is when the people express themselves.
Jackie's Foundation.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. I
Most
wish you all
welcome.
the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I hope you learned something new from today's show and that you're able to walk through life and carry what you've learned today with you in conversations that you have with other people, and that you're able to be more graceful and understanding if you see this in others or if you see it in yourself. Not that we advocate for self-diagnosis, don't do that, or diagnosing others, but now at least you're hopefully more understanding. And if you have any kind of questions or comments that you'd like to leave us, please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That's Living with S. And we'd be happy to connect you with the help that you might need. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow, as usual, 8 a.m. sharp. And thank you to Parkin by Radisson as well. We'll be back tomorrow. Bye, everybody.